So before we go ahead and make our keepsake box, this is my base one that you will see me working on through the video. I have made a couple of alterations with some of the measurements, but I just want to reassure you that the measurements that are now on your instructions are the correct ones. Okay, so please don't panic. All right, if I say it's 8 by something, go by your pattern instructions, all right, because I have tweaked some of the sizes just to make sure that this box fits in nicely. Okay, so let's get started. Right, so I've gone ahead and cut out all my construction pieces, and I've got the piece here, which is the back, which is 7 3/4 by 5 inches. And I've just cut a strip of black tape, which I'm just going to, for the moment, just put on one end, because the rest of the sides will be covered when we actually put the box together. So I'm just doing this. Here we go, and just give that a good smooth down, making sure I've got a nice top edge on there like so. Okay, so that's the back. Now the sides, I just want to do that on 2 pieces because they're going to be the bits for the front, and you'll get to see those. So we're just going to tuck that on there, give that a little snip. Here we go. I'm just going to add that on that one. So that would be one side, and then here's the other side. Now the sides are 5 3/4 by 5 inches. Okay, but all these measurements are on your download if you've gone ahead and cut and printed that off. You can get that from obviously our website. Right, okay, so they're the 2 sides, so that's that. We don't need to put any on the base because the base is going to have everything adjoined to it. So for the moment, that's what we've got. So let's get our back and our base put together. So just going to do a strip, a nice long strip of construction tape. Here we go. Let's just make sure that holds itself in place. And I'm just going to come in about not quite halfway. Okay, and now I'm just going to come in, and I'm going to give myself enough gap to fold up the back bit on there. So it's about 1/8 of an inch. I'm just making sure I've got everything lined up. So now I can fold that over, and I can take the tape and run that all the way down and join that on the inside. So all my joins are on the inside, and when I fold that up, we've got a nice clean finish on the back. So that's our back and our base. And now the sides, so this is where I make sure I have stuck the tape on the right side. We're now going to join the sides on exactly the same. So I'm just going to do a strip like so. I'm just going to add that on there, and I'm just going to bring this in so it lines up. Now it's just a little bit tricky because obviously we've got this corner here to deal with, so I'm just going to take the tape right up like so. Just going to give that a little snip. There we go. And then I'm just going to come in, and I'm just going to cut that at a diagonal. And now I can fold that in on the inside, and that one round on the inside. You can see I've got a little gap there. Okay, we're just going to tag in a little bit of tape there just to fill in that little construction board bit. There we go. And because all the joins are on the inside, it still looks fairly nice on the outside. Okay, give that a little crease. So that is one side done, and now we're going to come and do the other side like so. I'll just find the edge of the tape again. So I'm just going to give myself a little bit there. I'm going to tuck that on there like so. Let's bring this in. Here we are. I'm just going to bring that in again. Give myself about an 1/8 of an inch gap. Oh, I can't get it lined up. There we are. Let's do it that way. There we go. That's better. So I'm lining it up at the bottom and at the top. That's it. Now I can take that tape over. Like so. Give that a nice little cut at the top. There we are. And we're going to bring this round. And I'm going to cut that diagonal so I can wrap that one round on that side, and this one can come in on that side. There we are. So that's a better finish. So already we're beginning to get together the shape of our box. Okay, now for the front piece we've got two pieces. We've got the front flap, so this is a bit that's going to come down, okay, and we're going to create our little gap there to put our album in. So we're just going to stick this one on. Okay, but before we do that, I've realised I need to put my tape on the top there. So, and actually we need to do it all around the other sides. So a long bit of tape. So I'm just going to put tape around 3 sides. So I'm going to start at one end. Here we go, and we're going to come down onto. Try and centre that, 1, 2, and the last little bit I'm going to come up and do 3. Let's snip that. Okay, so now I've got it like this. I'm just going to go in and I'm just going to put in a little snip on either side. And we'll do this top edge first. I'm just going to run that fingers along there, and I'm just going to smooth that down, because this will be the bit of the flap that you'll see when it comes down, like so. Just smooth that out. I can go in with a bone folder and just give that a nice neat, that's it, finish. And then on these corners here, I'm just going to do a little snip. I'm just going to mitre those, so it just gives it a nicer finish. Let's take that tape off. There we go. 1, 2, like so. And while I've got my scissors in my hand, I'm just going to come and do the other bits at the bottom for the minute, because these bits at the bottom will get covered with construction tape when we join it to the front of the box. Okay, right, and now I can, oops, still got tape stuck to my fingers. Right, okay, so I'm just going to smooth that along and push that down like so. Now I've not blacked out my corners like I normally do when I'm constructing anything, because I know that the tape is going to more than cover it for this particular item. Right, okay, so that's the front flap. So that is now going to join in. So you can see that's going to come down, and then we've got the tape that's going to run along there. So let's get that put in. So we get everything put on the base. Okay. Oh, knocking on my black stop. Right, okay. So I don't want these two to get in the way, so I'm just going to hold them up. Right, so let's get the front flap again. I'm just going to bring this in. I'm just going to hold those, and then I can line that up. Not quite, almost. Like so. Looks like we're fairly close to that. Okay, so what I'm going to do for this one is that I'm just going to snip this off like so, and I'm going to, now I can stick those down, and now I can come in and cut the corners. Again, I'm doing that diagonally, and I'm going to bring that over and bring that one round just so it covers. There we go, and I'm going to come around and do the other side. So I've not wrapped on this one as yet, and then I'm just going to bring that round on there, and that one comes in on there like so. And now I can just put a nice straight strip going all the way down. So I'm just going to cut that to make sure that's nice and straight. I'm going to line that up. There we go. Ideally without any creases, Deb. Right. Okay. I'm just going to run that along, and now I can cut that off straight at the other end. And there we are. Okay. So we've got our front flap. Okay. We've got our sides and our back. Okay, right, so before we attach this all together, I need to just do my tops of my sides. So I realised I hadn't done those. I should have done those as well. So I'm just going to come in. It'll be easier to do it now than later. So I'm just going to come in on either side. I'm just going to trim down, and I'm just going to mitre those corners. Let's just trim that right off. Okay, I'm just going to mitre that one off. That can go in on that side, because you'll get to see these on the inside and on the outside. I'm just going to peel that back, and I'm going to mitre that off as well, just to give it a nicer finish. There we go. Okay, and then I'm just going to do the same on the other side, literally on the other side. So I'm just going to tuck that on there. I mean, to be honest, if I'd stuck it all together and then realised, it wouldn't have made a lot of difference, but I just thought it'd just be easier to do it now. So there we go. Just going to pop that on there, and I'm going to do like I did on the other side. Just going to give that a little mitre bit, and the same on the other side. Okay, let's just fold that back a little bit. Give that a little snip. All right. And I can see that one that came over wrapped around the back there. I need to just give that a bit of a mitre, just so it helps it sort of blend in rather than a straight edge. Okay, so there we are. So we've got our front flap, we've got our two sides, and we've got our back. So now what we need to do is attach our lid. Now the lid, we're going to join at the back, and it is slightly bigger. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to run tape down two sides, and we've got the front little flap bit as well that's going to come down. No, that actually goes on the front of the box. Where is my little flap bit? I had it here a minute ago. Oh, there it is. I knew I'd find put it somewhere safe. Right, okay, so we're just going to put that over there for the minute. So let's just join. So this is the lid with the little flap bit that comes over. So we can join this completely. There we go. And again, I'm just allowing about 1/8 of an inch for that to drop down at the front. Okay, and now I can put the tape going over and wrap that round completely and give that a little snip. Okay, so that is now going to be our front. We've got the join on the inside, so we've got that nice smooth edge there. While I've got it like that, I'm going to run my tape along the front here as well, like so. And I just need that to fold over, so I don't need to wrap that. Let's cut that off. Let's re-stick that down. Okay. Let's make sure that's nice and straight. Okay. Okay, so this is our outside, and I'm just now going to run tape up both sides as well, because that will help when you lift up the lid and it comes back down. So that will keep everything nice and neat. And I'm just going to pop this on like so. Okay, let's just snip that. And I'm just going to cut a little mitre corner there. Now it is going over that join, so because we've gone over that join, I'm just going to get the bone folder and just give it a little stretch there. And I'm just going to come in on the other side, and I'm just going to mitre that corner so we get a nice finish at the front. And we're going to do exactly the same on the other side. Okay, so we're just going to tuck that down. Go. I'm just going to snip that. Right, okay, we're going to give that a little mitre there. There we are. I'll give that a good stretch. Let's just stretch that join there, and I'm just going to peel that back and mitre that one on that edge of that flap, like so. Come on, there you go. Okay. Right, so that is our lid prepared. Okay, I'll just give that a bit of movement, make sure that that's, because that's going to need to sit over the top, like so. So let's bring the base back. Now I've realised that I didn't need to put tape on there. I think I got a bit carried away, but it's not going to matter. So now this is slightly bigger than the back on the box itself, so we're just going to have to bring this forward, and we're going to have to wrap it with a slight overhang. Right, let's just line you up. I don't quite want you halfway. Okay, and now the lid is going to come in, but it is going to slightly overhang because this is 8 inches and that is 7 3/4. So you're looking at an 1/8 of an inch overhang on either side. Let's just check that. That's slightly out, so do take your time with this measurement. Okay, I think we're there. All right, and now I'm just going to wrap that over. Okay, and I'm going to come over and I'm going to bring it over the other side. It's always a little bit awkward where you've got two things that are slightly different, so I'm just going to pinch that in either side like so. Okay, so there we are. So that is our lid. So if you think about it, the sides are going to come up, the lid's going to sit, and that will overhang on the front. So you can see how our box is gradually coming together. Okay, so on these bits here, I'm literally just going to snip either side where that score line is, because these tiny little flat bits will come in when we join the box together. And there we are, and that is almost our box sorted. The only thing that we need to worry about now is actually putting the front on as well, but that will go on once we start to join our sides and everything, and then we will add that. Okay, now while we're at this point, I don't need to worry about the inside, but I have cut out some black cardstock to go in to cover all of that. But let's get our sides stuck together first. So I'm just going to cut one strip, and I'm just going to put that on about halfway. Okay, and I'm just going to snip that off like so. Oops, getting a bit stuck there. Right, okay, now I can fold that back, ready to join this side together. Okay, so that's going to come in. That tiny little bit that we folded over from the lid has just nicely disappeared now on the inside. Okay, so that is just nice and straight on the edge there, and then we're just going to come around and do exactly the same. Okay, so I'm just going to put that tape down about halfway. Snip that off. Now I can fold that back, and now I can bring this up, and again that tiny little bit of black tape that was overhanging from the lid is now gone on the inside, and it's disappeared. Right, okay, let's just make sure that that's gone in nicely. There we are. Right, okay, so that is the inside bit done for the moment. Okay, and now we can turn the box on its outside, and I'm just going to join and cover those edges. So we're just going to put some tape. I'm just going to allow just for a little bit of overhang, just so that I can make sure I've got that nice and straight. There we go. Right, let's cut a little mitre corner up the end here, and let's just do this bottom bit here. So now I can just overlap those at the bottom on that one, and this side can now come up. I can just give that a little snip, that's it, and just take that over just so that covers that. Okay, so that's that side done, and now we're going to do exactly the same on the other side. Now I've noticed I did have a little bit of construction tape showing on there, so I'm going to give myself just a little bit more to fold over, but let's cut that. There we go, and we're just going to fold that in. Let's snip this straight, there we are, tuck those in at the bottom. This one I'm just going to cut I think I've probably cut the wrong bit there, but never mind, I've got some spare that I can just tack a little bit in. Right, this is coming over, oh, just enough to cover that. Look, that tiny little bit there, there we go, that will just overlap on there. Okay, so that is our box almost put together. We've just got to put the front on now, and we've got our flap that comes up, that's going to come down, so that's our lid. Now you'll see that these are slightly different depths, which is how I've done it. Okay, so the front bit, this bit, is what is going to make it sturdy at the top here. Okay, and then that will come up and sit on top, and then you'll have the lid coming in underneath, so you've got something for the flap to join up against on there. Okay, so this is the front, so this is going to join in like so. Okay, now this is going to be a little bit tricky because we've obviously got to stick it either side. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to run my tape on the top and the bottom first, so let's just do that. There we are, so we're just going to run the tape like so. That's it. Okay, and then we're going to do the same on the other side. There we go. Let's just snip this off. Oops. Right, okay. Oh, it's gone a little bit wonky, but it's not going to matter too much because we are going to stick patterned paper and black cardstock on there as well. Okay. And then that is going to stick in like so. Okay, so let's just get that stuck in. So again, I'm just going to do my pieces. Actually, let's do it this way. I'm going to cut one end, and then we're going to put the same on the other end. Here we are. Okay, and right, okay, Okay, so now we can fold these pieces back, and we're going to line it up and stick it one bit at a time. Okay, so I'm going to join that edge so it butts up against that, and now I can get my finger in there. I know it's nice and in line with the top edge. Now I'm going to come round and do the same on the other side. Right, let's fold that back a little bit further. That's it, so I can hold that in place. Got that in alignment. Here we go. And we're just going to stick that side down. Okay, so that one piece is in, and now I'm just going to put a strip over the top. I'm going to cut this a little bit bigger, and now we're going to fold that over. Okay, and now I can cut that in the center and fold that in and around, and that is going to help strengthen that top bit. All right, and then we're just going to come in and cut diagonal. Now I can tuck that bit down and tuck that bit down as well, and then we're going to do the same on the other side. Here we go. Right, oops, here we are. Fold that down, snip that bit. It's a little fiddly, but we'll get there in the end. Right, okay, and now I can just fold that bit over, and that bit can come in over the top, and there we are, and we've got our front bit done. So that's now going to come down. That sits beautifully on there. There's still that little bit of overhang, but I'm happy with that. And now that is going to sit nicely together. So as I said, I think definitely on the pattern I'm going to have this front piece just a little bit wider, and in fact I think I might even take that off and do that, and change that so we've got it in full alignment. So I've gone ahead and I've swapped out that piece and put in one that matches the same size as the lid, and actually I'm quite happy with that. It does hang over a little bit, but from the front aesthetically it's going to look so much better, but it's up to you. I've changed the pattern to make that 8 inches wide, but if you decide you don't want to do that, that's absolutely fine. You can just do it at 7 3/4. Okay, but yes, I think that looks so much better from the front, and because you've got that slight overhang on the sides and that as well, that's just it's not going to make any difference. Okay, so now we've got it to this stage, I think the best thing to do now is stick in our base papers before we put all the shelving and everything else in. So I've gone ahead, and as you can see, I've cut out everything. Where is it? Here we are. That's the back and the base. Now I've cut out 2 bases because we're going to need one for the bottom of our box. Okay, so I'm just going to put that to one side for the minute. And let's stick in our base first. So it's going to make it so much easier to do this while we can get in there. All right, so I'm just going to literally put some glue. Right on that. Okay, I'm just going to add that in now. Okay, and at this point what we're going to be doing is building up the inside of our keepsake box. Okay, so as you can see, I've just put some bookbinding glue on there. That's just going to tuck in, and now I can get in there, line it up, just see how we're doing. making sure that that front edge of the cardstock is level. Okay, because obviously you're going to see that. You need to make sure that that's firmly down in place, so that's good to go. And I'm now going to do the back, so I'm just going to flip over that and do the back. And we're going to do the sides. So we need to do all of this before we can put in our little shelf. So let's pop that in. Okay, and again, I'm just making sure that I've got a nice straight edge at the top there, because that will show above on the inside of the box when we come to put this together. I don't think I need to add a little bit more glue in under that corner. It's not quite sticking. There we go. Stick that down. There we go. Right, okay. So that is the back and the base in. Now I'm going to flip it and we're going to do the two sides. So here we are. I've got two sides. Make sure we get plenty of glue in the corners. There we go. Like so. It's up to you. I mean, I'm just putting black cardstock in here. If you wanted, you could put in patterned, but I'm just going with the black on the inside of my boxes. I just think it looks nice. Or it doesn't have to be black. You could go with another colour and just keep that colour all the way through. Okay, and now we're just going to do the other side, and just make sure I get loads of glue in the corners. Oops, not all over the worktop, Deb. Okay, I've normally got my little glue mat somewhere. Right, okay, and now I'm just going to put that in, and again I'm just making sure that the sides, the top edge is going to be level and it matches in with the front bit and the back bit as well. So that needs to come out just a fraction. Okay. All right, so that is the inside of our box already lined, as it were. We've just got to do this bit here. So I've got this bit cut as well, so that's just going to stick on there. That's the front bit. I can see that tape is rolling a little bit, so I'm just going to cut that off. There we go. All right, we're just neatening up all these edges. Right, come on then. Put you in on there, like so. Okay, and we're just going to drop that in. And again, just making sure it lines up with the side pieces. And then we've got a nice straight edge, which that isn't. It's just... Okay, so there we are. So that is the inside of our box done. Now what we need to do is look at our dividers and our shelf. So this is my shelf, and that will drop in. It's going to be a snug fit, but it will go in. Okay, so let's just take that out, and as you can see, I've already gone round and done the edges on the shelf. Okay, if you find when you come to put your shelf in that you need to trim it a little bit, then by all means do so. It really does depend on how much gap you've given on your corners okay, when you put the sides and everything together. That is a tight fit, but that's what I'm after. And I've got my black cardstock, and I'm literally just going to stick that on, and I've done 2 pieces, one for either side, because we're going to have the top and the bottom bit. So let's just glue this on. Okay, and then this can be drying while we're waiting, like so. That's just one side. Let's flip that over and just line that up. But like I said, if you need to trim your construction ball down a little bit to fit, then by all means do so. So that's one side done, and then we're going to flip it over and do the other side. Now you could go really fancy with your insides, like with some lovely, as I was saying earlier, with some nice patterned papers and that. I mean, can you imagine if this was lined in or like some really like gold or silver mirror card or something like that? It could look really quite posh, depending on the occasion, I suppose. But right, okay, so that's done. That's our shelf. Okay, and then we've got our side bit. So this is my back shelf, and I've done one side support, so I'm just going to wrap the other one. And I normally do this in 2 stages. I normally go one side, 2 sides. I'm just going to snip that. And I'm not going to bother with mitering corners or anything like that, because it's going to be tucked inside. Okay, now these supports are going to hold the shelf up in situ. Okay, I'm just going to do the other side. So here we go, 1 and 2. Let's give that a little snip. Okay, I'm just going to stick those down. Oh, that's curled a bit. Never mind, I won't worry about that. Okay, so that's our 2 side supports and our back shelf. So I've only cut one bit because you're going to stick these onto the sides inside the box. So you only need to put card on there, because the other side we're not going to see because we're going to glue that. So let's pop this on like so. I'm just going to do this with the other ones. So exactly the same on the back support as well. You've just got one piece. Okay, so just going to stick that down. And we're going to do the other side. Because these will become hidden and blend in on the inside part of our box. So I'm just going to stick that on. There we go. Like so. 1, 2, and then the back support, which I had somewhere and I can't find it. I did have it here. Where was it? That's the front flap. That's to go in on there. So where's the back one gone? Oh my goodness. Right. I don't know what's happened to it. I didn't tuck it in there. No, it's definitely not there. That's for the divider. Right, let's cut another bit then. Okay, so this is 3 inches by 5 3/4 is the actual back shelf support, so we're going to cut this at 2 3/4 inches. Actually, if I got a slightly smaller bit, look at that, 2 3/4 inches by 5 1/2. You watch, I'll find it. It's probably slipped down the back of the desk somewhere. Right. There we go. Right. So now we can glue that on. Like so. I'm just going to tuck that on there. And there we have it. Okay, so now the next stage is to put this in on the inside. So obviously the back support is going to go center, and then you've got the 2 side supports that are going to go in. Now, because this is part of the construction, I'm going to actually put some red liner tape on here, I think, because I really want it to hold. I don't want it to peel away from the back. So I'm just going to put 2 strips on there. There's 1 and 2. I'm using my 25mm red liner tape, but if you've got any other tape, then obviously you can add however many strips you need. All right, I'll just tuck that in there. And this will hold this firmly in place, so it's not going to be going anywhere. Okay, and then we're going to do exactly the same on these other 2. So, red liner tape. Red liner tape. There we go. Oh, well, I've got the big one in hand. I might as well pop this on. Okay, and just our final. Oops. Like I've said before, this wide tape is really good for these sort of jobs. Right, okay. And now we're just going to put a couple of smaller ones in just to fill that in. Oh, it's very noisy out there today. Right, okay, and then our final one, and here we go, this one. Right, so now we've got those all fixed down, let's give them a good burnish, like so. Here we are, and we're just going to peel these off. So I'm going to go with the sides first. It's just, that's my little poker tool. There it is. Be easier. Try to get it off with my fingers. Come on. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we're just going to add a bit of our wiggle glue, as I like to call it. Here we are. Okay. Now, because this is smaller than the sides, what we're aiming for is for it just to stick in the middle, in the centre. So I'm just going to drop that down. I'm going to try and centralise that. And I'm going to bring that up and slot that in. Okay, and then we're going to do exactly the same on the other side. Don't worry too much if they're not exactly opposite each other, because you're not really going to see this once the album goes in and all the rest of it, and because it's all covered in black, it just helps blend it in better. But it won't be far out. Right, okay, and now we're going to stand up again and do this one. I'm going to turn it round on this side. I'm going to line it up so it's roughly the same distance. Drop that down, push that in. Okay, that's 2, and then our final side, which is the back. And here we go. And we're going to add our glue. Okay. And now we're going to come and do this bit. So we're going to drop that into the centre. Make sure that that is sat right down on there and push that on. So you can see by having that red liner tape on there, that is really going to hold that in situ. And now we can put our shelf in at the top, and that will push down and sit on those edges like so. Now you can glue that in if you wish. So looking at that, I think they sit firmly on there. I am going to run a little bit of tape along that bottom edge there, just to hold that in place, I've decided. Okay, which means that I could have put the inside of that shelf paper on last, but I don't think that's going to matter too much. Right, we're just going to snip that off like so. I'll run that all the way along, making sure that that is nice and level. There we are, that's better. Okay, so I can see from the inside that that shelf is sitting snugly on those supports, and there we are, and that is it finished now. So all I've got to do is just line the lid and the inside with the black, and do this front flap with the black as well, unless you want to put patterned paper in on the inside. Now the only other thing that we've not talked about is the little divider, which will sit in here. Okay, and I can see that that is slightly shorter, so let's just measure that. So we're looking at 5 3/4, so that should be 5 3/4 by 2 inches. I've cut it short by a little bit, so let me just grab some construction board and then we can get that bit cut. Okay, right, so 5 3/4 by 2 inches. Now you don't have to put the divider in, the divider is optional. Okay, so let's just go with 5 3/4. By 2 inches. I'm just going to check that depth. That's a little bit high actually, that 2 inches. So let's take that down to 1 3/4. I will adapt the pattern, so you won't need to worry about this bit. So when you come to follow the pattern, all these measurements will have been altered. Okay, So let's just try this in for size. There we go, perfect. All right, so with the divider, I'm going to go round and do the tape on all 4 sides, well 2 sides, the top and the bottom rather, first of all, because we'll need the side bits to join it together. Okay, I'm just going to snip that. There we go, like so. And then I'm going to do the other side. Here we are. Whoops. Keeps slipping off that tape. There we go. And run that along. Hold that down in place. I've got my strips. Now these would have been cut a little bit shorter, but I think once I've stuck those in, I'll probably still be okay. So I need to trim those down because those measurements are going to be slightly out because I've made that a little bit not as wide. Okay, so the idea is to make a decision where you want to put your divider. Do you want to put it in the center? Do you want to come off to one side? Now in my original one that I did with the toolbox, I made a little ring binder and then I had a little tag binder. Okay, so it is up to you where you want to put it. I think on this one I'm going to go centered because I'm not making the little ring binder and that to go in here, so I'm going to do it as a 50 and 50, and then you can put bits in it. Now I could leave it, I suppose, and wrap it all so that you can move it up and down, or we can fix it firm. Okay, now if we're going to fix it firm, we're going to put the tape on and we're going to stick it onto our paper there. But I think for this one, I think I am going to, do I want to stick it down? No, I'm going to leave it because this is a gift for somebody and then they can move the divider. Okay, so in which case I'm going to do these last couple of bits. But the option is yours, okay? You can stick it down or not. So now I've just got that side, I'm just going to snip these like so. There we are. And I'm just going to do the other side. But I'll show you with that other piece how you can stick this down. There we go. Just snip that off. And again, we're just going to snip corners. 3, 4. Okay, and once I put the black cardstock on there, then that will just slide in and then I can move that up and down wherever I wish. But if you wanted to fix it down, this is what you'll need to do. So you'll need to get your tape and you'll need to put it on here. Okay, and what you will do is you'll put another bit of tape on the other side. Okay, let's just fold that. So you'll put another bit on the other side. Obviously you'd have it the same length as a bit of card or construction board. I'm just showing you. And then imagine that was the back. What you would do is that you would then drop it in and you would push it and you would stick those bits on like that, so you end up with it held in place like so. Okay, all right, so as always I will do all the decoration on the outside later on once I've finished with the album and everything else. And I think the only thing now we just need to talk about is magnets. Okay, so I'm going to need 2 magnets to come up on here and 2 magnets for the actual lid as well, because that's what I want to hold in place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my magnets on here first. So let's just put our little magnets on. Now I'm just checking to see how far I need to come up. So okay, I can come up that sort of distance, and I'm going to put the other one on like so. So I'll just see by eye they are roughly in the same position. Just going to add a little bit of tape just to hold these in place. That's one. Now bearing in mind I've got the other one coming over on the other side, so I need to make sure I've got enough clearance for that. Okay, and that's got a bit of a raggedy edge, so just take that back a bit, because when I put the paper on there'll be an 1/8 of an inch trim going round, so I just need to make sure that you're not going to see that tape. So now we've done that, I can put magnet on there, magnet on there. Let's add our bit of glue. 1, 2. So that's going to fold over. I'm just bringing that one to the top there to make sure that they are still lining up, which they do. Okay, so now I can see where the glue is on the other side, so now I can pop that one on and pop that one on there. So I'm just going to let those dry, because then I'm going to put my paper on over there. So now we've got the magnets set on the bottom, okay, and that's all fine. When I folded this over, I think I made my overhang too big. So what I've done is I've gone in and I've trimmed this back to 5 3/4 of an inch, and then reattached the flap. Okay, all the measurements will be correct on your instructions when you come to do that, so don't panic. Okay, I think it just sits so much nicer on there, and then you've got the overhang here. So I am going to add magnets onto here. So I've got one magnet here, so I'm just going to attach that there, and I've got another magnet on here, so I'm just going to attach that on there, and then let's just grab a couple of other ones. So having done this now, I think this is going to work much better. Okay, so I'm just going to double that in there, and I'm just going to fold that over, and I can push those down to see where those magnets are going to go. Okay, and now I can move these down, and I think this is going to give it a better and securer finish on our box. Okay, I'm just going to add a little bit of tape just to hold these in place while they dry. So that's one, and there we go, that's that tape. Okay, so apologies for any confusion, but you'll find that when you come to do your box, the measurements will be correct, so you won't need to do any of this little faffing around like I've been doing. Okay, and now that comes down and they clip in, and that's a nice front edge seam on there as well, which means. But before we go ahead and decorate our box, we need to talk about our handle that's going to go on the top. So you have two options. You can make a cardboard one. Now this is 2.5 inch by 6.5 inch, and I've scored at 3/4 of an inch and 1 3/4 of an inch. And then as you see, I've just folded on that, and then what I'll do is add a bit of glue or tape just to hold that in place. Okay, and then I can do this one of two ways. Let me just get my patterned papers that I've already prepped. So here we are. So this is the top bit that's going to sit on there. So what I can do is, just going to give that a little curl, is I can bend that so that that sits centered like so, and I could add a couple of brads to hold that in place, or what I could do is slot down on either side and just tuck that in so that that finishes it off nice and neatly. Okay, so that is one handle. Okay, the other handle I could use is ribbon. So again, I could cut a couple of slots, tuck the ribbon in, and then I've got a ribbon handle on the top, which is a bit softer. Okay, and this is actually the ribbon I'm going to probably use on the album spine, so I might go with the ribbon. Okay, so I just wanted to explain that you've got two options here. Now the thing is that what you can do is, with the ribbon, again, you can do this one of two ways. You could poke two holes right in the very lid, okay, before you put your internal bit in, to really hold that in place. So you would stick down that, and then you can poke right the way through if you want to have a little sort of bunched effect on your handle. Okay, but I quite like the thought of having my handle quite flat and straight. So what I'm going to do is cut a couple of slots, but I just wanted to go through that with you. There is some hardware that you can buy, like you can buy smaller handles, like little brass handles and things like that, which have got the like brads and that to go in through them, in which case I would fix your pattern paper on first, put your handle on, fold out your brass or your brads on the back here, and then put your internal cover over that. Okay, so I think we're going to work out our measurements for here, and we're going to cut this in place to take the ribbon. So we just fold that up. So I'm just going to put that one to one side. Okay, so here's my paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to measure my patterned paper. So we've got 5.5 inches. So 5.5, or 5 is 2 plus a half inch, so it's 2 3/4. So I'm just going to mark on here my 2 3/4. I'm just going to come along and draw in that pencil line. This pencil's not very sharp, you can see it's a little bit out. I really need to sharpen my pencils 2 3/4. So we're going to do it from either end, and then that will give me my sort of guide bit in the middle. Okay, and then I'm going to cut this, I think probably at, let's have a little look, maybe about 6 inches. Let's just see if that was 6 inches. I'm pushing that up with a bit tuck in. Is that going to be enough? Yeah, or maybe 6.5, or I could probably do that 7. Let's go with 7. So I'm just going to mark that and cut that. Okay, there we are. So we've got 7 inches now. Obviously I'm going to come in and give it a little bit of a, so I reckon about 1 inch on each side of our tape is going to give us a nice look on that. And let's come in at 2 inches either end and just see. 2 inches either end, just to see how that's going to look. There we go. All right, let's see whether that is going to, so if I've got 1 inch either side of that line, that's probably going to be enough for the top. Okay, so because of that, and this is about 1 inch wide, so down that middle bit I'm just going to come in, I'm just going to mark off where I need to do my cut. Okay, and then I'm just going to turn that around and do my inch. This is a rough estimate. Okay, so it's just so I can get it as central as I can. Right, so now I've got my cut lines, so let's just do that. So I've just cut one, and I'm just going to cut the other one. There we go, like so. So that's my 2 cut lines, and let's just thread that through just to see what it looks like. Now obviously I'm using black ribbon because all my trims and everything are black, but you could use a different colour. Okay, so let's just try this and see how we get on. Alright, so I've sort of come in about the same, so I think that's going to be, that's a nice grab on that. So I've got one, I'm just going to flip that back, and I'm going to add some red liner tape to the ribbon, because I do find that the red liner tape is really good for sticking this stuff down. So I'm just going to fold that on the back. I'm going to put that on the ribbon itself. I'm just going to cut another piece like so. I'm going to fold that back. Here we are, and now I can peel this off. There we go. I'm just going to pull that down. Ensure that I've pulled that nice and straight, ready for that to stick down. There we go. So that one's in nice and firm. And I'm just going to do the other side. Like so. Okay, and I'm just going to, before I stick this final one down, I'm just going to make sure that I'm happy with that on the front. Oops, that stuck to my finger and it pulled it. Okay, let's just pull that down. Here we go, and now I can stick that in down there. Okay, and that is going to be my handle. All right, so I've gone ahead and I've prepped all the other papers ready to stick on. And what I've done is like this front one here, I've got it so that the pattern comes just over at the front flaps, just so it follows that pattern along the top. And then I've got my 2 side pieces and my other flaps. So because this is going to hold a little bit of weight, I am going to use some red liner tape to stick this down on the top. I'm just going to put a couple of strips. There we are. I'm just going to do this other one. Oh, let's turn that around, it makes it easier. There we go. Like so. Oops, stuck to me scissors. Right, okay, I'm now going to put one straight down where that middle one is, just to secure that ribbon in even more. Okay, and it looks like I can get another one in either side. Okay, that's one, and final one. There we go. Right, let's just give this all a lovely burnish. Okay, right, I'm just going to peel off from the back. Like so. Oops, come on. Here we go. And the last one. And I will add a little bit of wiggle glue, just to help me align. Okay, just to help align that. Okay, right, stand up for this job now. Okay, let's bring in our box lid. I'm just going to flip that over, and again, like with any of my patterns, I leave about 1/8 of an inch finish all the way around. So just making sure I've got it even on the sides and the front, and there we go, and we are down. So now I can lift that up, and that works perfectly fine. Okay, and now it's just a case of putting all the rest of the patterned papers on. So let's just go ahead and do this. So make sure I get plenty of glue in the corners. Okay, and I'm going to line this up with the front piece like so. Just move that down a little bit. There we are. Let's come down just a fraction, just so we've got, making sure that that edge at the top there is nice and straight. Okay, the underside bit I've not cut yet, I've just realised that, but we'll just pop the patterned paper on here. And now that I've got that in line, I need to make sure that I stick this in line with it as well. There we go. Just add loads of lovely glue on there. And I've gone with a contrast on the front because I might put a couple of stickers on there, or the name of wherever this person is going to be travelling. So I wanted to leave that relatively plain at the front. And then the back, I've also used the same contrasting paper. Oh, come on, glue. Let's move that over so you can see what I'm doing. There we go. So the papers I'm using are I think it's Cartabella, Travel Stories it's called. So happened to be a pack that I had left in my stash, and it's quite generic in that there's lots of lovely colours, so it will sort of go with any sort of country really. Right, let's just make sure that that is stuck on like so. And now the side, so I've got 2 postcards here, and that was the one that had the plain. So with the postcards, I just need to make sure, I think I had the postcard bit going at the back, and I've got the writing up the right way. So I think it was this one on the left is what I was putting on first. and I've got the arrows coming down with the airmail. I quite like this paper because it's a little bit, it looks a bit junk journal-fied, if you know what I mean. It's got lots of different aspects on it. So yeah, so I quite like this paper. And now that I'm just going to center in there. There we go. And again, just making sure that that lines up nicely and that we've got straight edges. And now we can flip that and do the other side. Okay, and again we're just checking on the writing. I'll just tag that on. Okay, now if I'd had more than one sheet of this paper, I might have carried it all the way round, but I only had one sheet. So there we go. Right, okay, so that is the outer side of the box done. The only thing I haven't done is put the little panel in there, so I'm going to use the same paper. So let's get that cut. So that is 7.5 inches by 1 3/4. So let's just let's just cut 1 3/4 by 7 inches. I'll just give that, let's turn that around so I can cut that better. There we go. Measure that up. 7, okay. And I want 7.5. So here we are, 7.5. Just line that up. Make sure that's nice and straight. There we go. Okay, I think that cut properly. Let's go in and cut that a little bit more. There we are. That's better. All right, and then what I've done with all of mine is I've gone round and inked it. So the ink that I use is the Distress ink. This is black soot. So I'm just showing you what I've done on all the other pieces, just in case you've never done anything like this before. It's always good just to see what I've done. Okay, so that just, and the reason I do this, it just helps to fill in the white core on the paper. And for my faux stitching, which is just doing the little dashes going around it, I use a 0.5 fine tip pen, and I'm just doing some little dashes going all the way as close to the edge as I can. I just think, I mean, for me personally, I just think it finishes it off. You don't have to do this, of course, it's completely up to you. And don't worry if your stitches aren't completely straight. I mean, you could use a ruler, but I just think it adds to the that this has been made by hand, this item, so it just gives it an extra little bit of character. I'm just going to come along, but what I will say is that if you plan to ink all your papers and faux stitch, you need to follow it all the way through, especially into your album as well, just so you have that continuity and, is it cohesion? Is that the word I'm thinking of? Probably. Okay, right, so that didn't take long to do. So now I can just add, oh, when we get the glue going, add some glue. Now what I will say with any of the patterned papers dependent on your scoring and how you put your joins together, do just give them a double check just to make sure that they are going to be okay. Sometimes you find that you might need to take a little slither off. All right, but that's gonna sit on there nicely, making sure I've got that nice and straight. Let's pull that over so you can see what I'm doing. Making sure I've got a nice straight line at the top. Push that over those magnets. Right, so now that sits up there. That comes in over there. And then the only other bit that I need to do is my lid. On my original one, I did decorate the insides of the lid with patterned paper, but for this project, I'm just going with the black cardstock because I don't have a huge amount of the papers. So I want to make sure that the album works well. I can always go back in and decorate this with some journal cards and things like that if I fancy that later. Okay, and now we're just going to pop this on, and again I'm just making sure I've got on there nice and straight and even. And there we are. So there's my divider. I haven't stuck it down, but I could put a little bit of glue on there or the tape if I wanted to fix that. But there we are, and that is the outside of the keepsake box, and that is the keepsake box all done, ready to go. And then all we've got to do now is just make the album that's going to tuck inside. Okay, and one other little tip for your ribbons. In the past, I've always cut the disc to sort of tuck the end in, but I did buy a load of hairbands for another project, and so I use that just to go round, and that just holds that in place like so. Okay, right, that is our box sorted. And now I've just gone in and added a little bit of detail to the front. I put a lovely little map on there, and what I thought might be quite nice is actually to maybe put a little heart as to where this box is representing. So the recipient of this is going to Italy, so Italy is just tucked in there, so I might just put a little heart on there just to show that that's what the box and the contents are representing, their trip to Italy. But there we go. So that is our keepsake box done for our celebration album set. And yes, I look forward to seeing you all in part 2. Take care. Bye.